All right, let's go over the pass optimal and GPP winning lineups for the Masters tournament. If you're new to the channel, welcome on in. I like to go over this segment because it gives us a good idea of how to build lineups this week. I keep track of 3 different types of lineup builds. One being the GPP winning lineup, which obviously is the best lineup for whatever contest that I record this lineup from. Most of the time, it is the Millionaire Maker contest that I record this lineup from. And that is being offered this week if you are interested in playing. I also keep track of the optimal lineup, which is self-explanatory. It is the perfect lineup for that year's tournament. And then I also keep track of the SweetSpot optimal, which is the best lineup that uses $49,600 of the salary and above. Now, sometimes the optimal lineup uses $49,600 of the salary and above. So then the SweetSpot optimal would take the second best lineup. All 3 of these lineups are provided for you and provided for myself to review, to analyze, to see what successful lineup builds look like. And if you want, if you point this tournament, or if you point this filter to the Masters tournament, you will see the most common salary builds that have been successful at this event. And currently I do have that Masters tournament already applied in the filter. You can see the most successful salary build is a 10K, 9K, 8K, 2 7Ks, and 6K. That is the salary build. Now, if you've been to this channel before, you know that's the typical jingle. I usually say start your lineups with a 10-9-8, 7-7-6 approach and go from there. You can see nearly 35% of successful lineups for the Masters tournament start this way. The second most common is almost identical, but instead of 2 7Ks, it's 2 6Ks. So we would just say 10-9-8, 7-6-6. And then if you look just below that, it's a 10-9, 3 7s and a 6, then a 10-10, 3 7s and a 6, 10-8-8, 7-6-6. But you're kind of getting a common theme. Most of them have a 10K golfer in it. Most of them have a 9K, an 8K, a 7K, and a 6K. And then there's some kind of rearrangement. You just make a couple substitutions and you kind of have the same salary build. So I just want to point that out. Those are the most common salary builds for the Masters, 10-9-8, 7-7-6. You can use these tools by going to SweetSpotDFS.com, and under the fantasy tools, you can see historic salary builds as well as the pass optimal and GPP winning lineups. Now it's behind a paywall. So for this week, if you want to spend $4.99, you will be able to use these tools before building your lineups for the Masters, which, hey, I highly encourage you guys to do so. Now, when we go to the cheat sheet, that outside of the most common salary builds, we kind of have to take a look at the golfers in the field. And if we click the little Masters button up here for the cheat sheet, we can actually get the salaries for the Masters to show up. So again, this is the cheat sheet. This is actually free to use, by the way. You guys can come to SweetSpotDFS.com without an account and use the cheat sheet however you want. You will have access to all the 3 buttons up here right next to the cheat sheet. Just make sure you check the Masters, and then that way you will have the salaries. So we see 4 10K and above golfers. These are all considered 10K golfers, despite Scotty Scheffler being 14,000 and Rory McIlroy being 11,600. I categorize them as 10K golfers, just so you guys know, so you're not confused whatsoever. Now, here's the thing. Is this common at most Masters tournaments? You can actually go and use the Pass Optimal and GPP Winning Lineups tool right here. And what I would do is not select any lineup yet, but just select, put a filter of the Masters tournament and then select whatever year you want to look at. What I would do is go throughout all the years and just, use the salary sort on the table down below. And here you can see there are 5 10K golfers and above, with Scotty being $12,400, $1,600 cheaper than he is in 2026. Now, from there, I would also go to 2024, take a look at the salaries there just to see how many 10K golfers there are, 10K and above. And here again, we have 5 10K and above with Scotty being 12,100. If I go to 2023, we only have 3 golfers that are 10K and above. That is very interesting. I thought almost every year we've seen 4 or 5 10K and above. But we see a lot of 9Ks. So that's another thing to take into consideration. In 2022, this is what I'm used to seeing for the Masters, or at least what I remember. Look at how many 10K golfers we have. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7, all pretty equally priced, but Scotty being the most expensive at $11,000. In 2021, we see 6 again. In 2020, we see 5. In 2019, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 in 2019. 2018, we had 4. So that's that would be a year you could almost use as a comparison, just because of how many 10K golfers there were. 2017, there were 3. Okay, so my memory might be a bit hazy as how many 10K golfers, but then we get this year, 2016, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 10K golfers and above. It is worth noting, I think DraftKings kind of got in their groove around 2017, 2018 when it came to how to put salaries together for each event. Normally, you would see somewhere between 4 to 5 10K golfers, 6 to 7 9K golfers, usually just 10 golfers in the 8K range. It almost seems like it's a pillar to how they put salaries together. And then you'd see for the Masters, you'd see less, I suppose, for each of those because there's a smaller player field. But yeah, you would see a good chunk of 7K golfers followed by a big chunk of 6K golfers. But yeah, that's 2016, 2015, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 10Ks with Rory being 14,900. But I believe there was a 5K range, if I remember correctly. Yeah. Oh my God, there was a 4K range. Oh my God, that's 2015. So when you do your own analysis, maybe you just skip out on some of these years. Don't look at 2014 or don't look at 2015. Don't look at 2016, because the salaries are a bit wonky or whatever. But when it comes to 2026, if I go back to the cheat sheet, having only 4 10K golfers and one of them being 14,000 is a bit unique. Just by volume alone, like if we go back to this page, the historic salary builds, there's this little box right here that shows you 10K lineups. Each of these boxes are little summaries as to how many lineups, have a 10K golfer or a 9K or an 8K. You can see the total number and then you can see the percentage underneath. So 93.75% of each of these lineups that I keep track of started out with a 10K golfer. And that I guess what we could do is take a look at which years did not. And it's really simple how you can do this. Use the little summary on the right side, drill down into one of the lineups that did not start in the 10K range. And you can see the optimal lineup in 2017 did not start with a 10K golfer. Well, that used $48,300 of the salary. You can see that right here in this little box. And the most expensive golfer was $9,200. The least expensive golfer was $7,400. Now, the other lineup that we can look at is this 98877 lineup. And this is from 2019. This one used close to $50,000 of the salary. So keep that in mind. But for each of these years, what we could do, so one was 2019, the other one was 2017. Well, why don't we just go ahead and drill down into these dates, and the years, I should say, and you can see outside of that one lineup. So yeah, the GPP winning lineup for the 2019 Masters started with the 9, 2 or 3 8s and 2 7s. Well, the SweetSpot Optimal as well as the Optimal did start with the 10K golfer and had that 10 9 8 7 7 6 approach for lineup building. We could do the exact same thing for 2017. I did not keep track of a GPP winner at that time of the year. That's also something to point out. Sometimes I did not have data for these lineups, or I did not record them. But you can see the optimal leaving as much money on the table as it did, whereas the SweetSpot optimal used 50,000 of the salary and started with the 10K golfer. So even in the years where there was a recorded lineup that did not have a 10K golfer, different lineups for those years did have a 10K golfer and used, $49,600 of the salary and above. So although this says 93.75, what we could say is 100% of each year started with a 10K golfer. Now we could do that same analysis with the 9K or an 8K or, the sevens. You're most likely going to need sevens in your lineup. It's kind of your glue piece to all lineups. But here's what I'm going to say. Do your own research, go through and look at this on your own. I just wanted to give you kind of a head start as to where to start your lineup builds from. And of course, I mean, if you want to take a look at each of these lineups individually, which golfers went into each of these, that's where this tool comes really in handy. The Pass Optimal and GPP winning lineups. Go here, select a year as well as the lineup, and just see what that lineup looked like. I have the total salary used up here as well, kind of like little summaries for you, how many points were scored, as well as the total ownership. So if you're one of those that cares about total ownership, you can see that stuff right there. And you can cycle through this optimal lineup. I would just resort it by salary. That's kind of the easiest way to look at. So the optimal it scored 600 points. The GPP winning lineup scored 579, and the SweetSpot optimal scored 593. So you can see there's 3 different lineups that'll give you different ideas of where to start your builds. Like, look at this one: 2 10s, 3 7s, and a low 6K. So again, it just gives you ideas of where to start your lineups from. And again, this is at SweetSpotDFS.com under historic salary builds and pass optimal lineups. Now, one thing before I get out of here, I do want to show you guys something. I would clear out all of these selections because Scottie Scheffler is $14,000 this week. That's a huge salary to build lineups around. Since the major tournaments from last year, as well as some of the signature events, that's where we started seeing Scottie Scheffler start to rise in salary. He went from $12,000 to $13,000 really fast and ended the year in that $14,000 range. And that's where we have him all throughout this 2026 year. Now, what I would do is go under the fantasy stats filter, click on the little bullseye right here. And as you look down, what I would do is under the highest priced golfer, this is a filter, I would go ahead and put in 13,600. Just go like that, because this is looking at all lineups that had a golfer that was $13,600 and above. The next piece that I would do is select every tournament, but then type in tour, as in the tour championship, and deselect that, because I don't want to look at tour championships where they had a starting score. Remember that whole time where the best golfer in the FedEx Cup race started at -10 and his salary ended up being $15,000 or whatever it ended up being? Just do that. You remove that one from it, because that's not a good event to look at. Now, when it comes to a Scottie type of lineup, just doing those filters will give you a good idea of how to build your lineups. The most common lineup that starts this way, or that has that expensive of a golfer, is this 10-8, 2 7s, and 2 6s. Now, I did kind of build a lineup like that in the DraftKings player by player video that I just put out this last Friday. So go take a look at that, because that lineup wasn't terrible, but it gives you an idea of where to start your lineups. It actually went with a Scottie into a Matt Fitzpatrick at $8,700, and I think it was pretty decent. Maybe not. But this would be the most common Scottie lineup that has found success. And you can drill down in this and see what events that lineup pertained to. And unfortunately, 3 of those lineups came from the American Express. So if you really wanted to, you could just say just 2 events that had Scottie Scheffler at $14,200. If you drill down into the next one that was underneath it, now you see that the two lineups recorded for that 10, 8, 7, and 3 6s come from one event, the Charles Schwab Challenge. And if you really wanted to dig into it a little bit more, so 10, 8, 2 7s, 2 6s, we have the American Express as well as the Open Championship. Just come back to this Pass Optimal and GPP winning lineups tool. And what we're going to do is just go ahead and type in the American Express. Click into that. I'm going to deselect the lineup, and let's just go ahead and put in 2026. And now we can look at each of these different types of lineups, and you can see which golfers were in it. You can actually see the specific salaries. So Scotty Scheffler at $14,200, followed by $8,100 Jason Day, and then obviously you can see the rest of the lineup builds. Now, I kind of like to look at these salaries because Andrew Putnam at $6,300, you know, Andrew Putnam wasn't even a bad value. He was actually kind of a higher modeled golfer in my model, at least at his price tag. I did have a few Andrew Putnam lineups for this tournament, but if you go to the cheat sheet and you scroll down to what $6,300 will get you, you get a Christopher Wrighton, which isn't a terrible golfer to put in your lineups, but he has no Masters experience. Hao Tong Lee, no Masters experience. I'll actually have to double check on that. I've been updating the names, and Hao-Tong has been changed to just Hao Tong one word, just because, you know, oftentimes we don't really get it right in America when it comes to putting names together. So he actually might have course history. I can't remember, but either way, it doesn't really matter. If you think he's a value at $6,300, what a perfect golfer to put in your Scotty Scheffler lineups. We have a couple different past Masters champions in Charles Schwartzel, Bubba Watson, Zach Johnson. Then you get into Aldrich Potgieter, and I would actually make the argument that nobody underneath Aldrich Potgieter is even worth a consideration. So you have this small cluster of golfers, and maybe if you want to go up to the $6,400 range, I just found out Phil Mickelson withdrew, so maybe don't play Phil Mickelson, but Sam Stevens and Andrew Novak aren't bad plays either. So despite this one lineup build having Andrew Putnam in it, I mean, we're just doing a comparison, and this isn't even the perfect comparison to do because this was the American Express, and currently we're looking at the Masters tournament. So there's like, you know, no correlation, but the idea is if you're going to start a lineup with Scotty Scheffler at 14,000, it's best to understand what type of lineup build makes sense. So again, you can cycle through and just see if there are different names that come here, and obviously there are. Kind of crazy to see Austin Smotherman at $6,200 because he's been playing some good golf, but this was true at the 2026 American Express. Yeah, so there's different types of, you know, golfers that you can put in some of these lineups. That's all that I have for you guys when it comes to looking, like diving into the Pass Optimal and GPP winning lineups. Reminders, giveaways. I have a Win the Pot giveaway. If you look at the goal that's all the way over there to the left, I started at 892 subscribers, and for every one new subscriber to the channel, I add $2. And I started this 2 weeks ago, so we have added, like I said, 18 new subscribers. If you guys want to grow this pot, if you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing. And if you want to gain an entry, just comment down below on each of the videos that I will be posting for the Masters and any other ones that I post in the future. That way you can get more entries into this giveaway as long as you get them in before Tuesday, April 7th. That's when I'm running the giveaway. So be on the lookout for that. Again, subscribe if you haven't. And then obviously I do a weekly and a monthly giveaway. Still requires the same things. Be subscribed, comment down below, and then join me Tuesday night. I'll run the giveaway for the weekly. Unfortunately, we already did the monthly giveaway for last month, but every entry into each of the giveaways that I do for this month will go into the monthly giveaway. So if you want the chance to win a membership for SweetSpotDFS.com, be subscribed and comment down below. And then if you're not already a member at SweetSpotDFS.com, go create a free account and you will get put into an entry for the $1,000 giveaway that I'll be running once this channel reaches 1,000 subscribers. So if you're, again, not subscribed, I mean, we're at 910 subscribers. we're going to get there by the end of this year. I will run this giveaway and give out a lifetime membership to SweetSpotDFS.com worth $600, an annual membership worth $200, and 2 $100 cash giveaways. So if you are like, I don't really care for the memberships, there's still cash involved. So subscribe if you haven't. Go create an account at SweetSpotDFS.com. And that's it. Those are all the giveaways. So with all that being said, thank you all for watching. I will see you in the next one. All right, bye.